All right, another Monday, another opportunity in front of us. Obviously, a very difficult defeat to deal with the other night. Very hard fought. Looking back at it, I felt like our effort and our going after it was there, and our execution was off just enough. And obviously a play here, play there is the way a game like that went. If we end up on the other side, I'm sure Coach Jackson would have said the same thing. Great effort, and execution was challenging at times. And it's probably how those matchups are going to go. That they're going to be real tight. And in those tight moments, you got to be the team that executes better. And again, it wasn't for a lack of want to by our guys, but it just didn't end up happening for us. So we've had 2 games. We've come up on the short side in both of them. We just have to find a way to keep getting better. I think we got better from game 1 to game 2. You can't control your opponents by any means, and we're definitely going to have to get better going into week 3 here. Positive side of things, injury-wise, came out pretty clean as far as that game went. Don't anticipate getting the guys back, though, that missed that game. From an injury perspective, they're certainly not out for a long period of time, but they'll be out at least into this week. And in their absence, guys continue to have to step up and do. I think at the linebacker position, the performance Cole Taylor has stacked up now over 2 weeks. Has put him in position that we almost see him as a guy that should be out there. Neil will get back at some point, but Cole certainly earned a role. I know at the free safety position, both Brian Meredith and JJ Dolan are playing, and they're getting better at the same rate. Offensive line wise, while we played better, I think as a unit, so there's still improvement that needs to be made there. Burke will be back, and what we do when Burke gets back, we'll have to decide when that happens. Unfortunately, we missed Chris Long. I think Chris, definitely would have made a difference in that game. But ultimately, other guys, are taking those opportunities and need to continue to make the best of them. But other than that, we are on the right side of the injury side of things. So heading into this week, another challenging opponent in the University of San Diego. These 2 weeks for them. They've played at home both weeks. They played a Big Sky opponent in Cal Poly the first week, and they played a future Big Sky team in Southern Utah this past week. Didn't get on the right side of that Cal Poly game, but then this past week got a big overtime win against a good Southern Utah team in my estimation. It's clear they have athletes. They've been able to run the football well. The quarterback, I think, drives that with his athleticism, and then defensively they've been able to stop the run. And they're a 3-4 team that's really, I would say, aggressive, fundamentally sound. A different defense than we've seen the first couple weeks. So that transition itself is something we're going to have to make this week. I think we've seen athletic quarterbacks in the first 2 weeks, a little bit maybe different version of that, but he definitely is critical, and they have some good athletes, whether it's at running back, receiver, good athletic offensive line at the same time. So again, another opportunity, regardless of who we play, we have to find a way to keep raising our level, and that's going to be the challenge all through the season. And I like our potential to do that. When we meet our potential, I hope it happens sooner than later. We're not there yet, and we need to keep working to get there. So with that, I'll open it up.
Titan mentions the stunts that South Dakota State had, and kind of put the blame on himself or the O-line. How did you feel kind of like their aggressiveness, the blitzes too, maybe affected some of the challenges?
Well, I think 2 weeks in, movement just period has challenged us. South Dakota State's a very sound defense no matter what they try to do. They're trying to bottle everything up and make it real hard to create space for your backs, who's ever running the ball. Now, we rushed for over 200 yards, but that was a large part because Justin scrambled around. Getting our running backs established in the run game. We knew it was going to be challenging against them, but ultimately we didn't probably do enough of that, and especially when it comes down to a few runs at the tail end of the game where we have to make a yard or two. We need to make that happen. So area for us to continue to improve is how we handle movement. However it's happening, blitzes, slants, whatever it might be. And I thought we, in that game, made some strides. In the Oregon game, I guess as the game went along, made some strides, but we can't allow that to be an issue from the jump in any of these games. So I'm sure Coach Smith will work hard at that this week. It's not that we're going to be perfect, but guys need to. The defense isn't just going to be there standing there. We have to be able to handle movement, and that's definitely a point of emphasis.
You think the reshuffling is contributing to any of that at all?
Well, I could sit up here and say that's why we haven't played well. I'm not going to do that. We came out of camp with 6 guys we felt like that could start. One of them was out. We start the other 5 guys. We had a week to prepare for that first game. We've practiced 2 weeks with this crew, and our expectation is they execute better than they are.
Oh, that last drive you guys had before overtime, I guess what was, I think you had a little over a minute left. I guess what was the approach to that drive, and I guess how you felt that?
We had a minute 12. We had no timeouts. We had to probably get to at least the 35 to give ourselves a chance, and we didn't do that. I think we got, like a defense should, they force you to check down inbounds, and weighing a short gain versus that clock rolling is a real challenge, and ultimately we get ourselves, I think there was 11 seconds left. We needed to cover probably 15 to 20 yards, and Justin ran. We had a guy wide open kind of right in the middle of the field. Now he had to be a little patient and know that his only play there was to try to make a throw. It wasn't to run, because even if he runs, the only thing he could do is score, because otherwise we would have ran out of time. So our approach was to score. Now I know we ran it on 3rd and 7 because at that time we only gained 3 yards on 1st and 2nd down. I certainly didn't want to have another incomplete pass and give them another chance. So we ran it for a 1st down, then we were going, and so some level of being able to move the ball, but ultimately not enough to give us a chance. And even on that last play, we were about midfield, so prefer to throw that ball out of bounds and at least get a Hail Mary shot. So anyways, I was very happy our defense allowed us that opportunity to get the ball back and do something with it. And there's going to be more 2-minute opportunities as the season goes along. We need to be able to execute. We got the field goal before the half in large part because of a long kickoff return and a long scramble. But we did get that done. But those points at the end of half, end of game, are obviously critical. And you got to be able to really function at a high level in those situations. And experience is your best teacher. We practice it every Monday morning, and this morning we got the kickoff and we made it, and hopefully the next time we do that.
And then on defense, I think guys ended up forcing a punt, but that 12 men on the field, that substitution penalty, was that just miscommunication, or I guess what was that?
Yeah, I think it's miscommunication. Ultimately, all that starts and ends with me. And we didn't have a timeout. It was really loud, so to get someone off the field in that case, they had no intention, I think, of snapping the ball unless we jumped off sides. But you line up in 12 and you make no effort to get them off. You're set with the penalty. So what it ended up doing, it probably cost us, probably 15 seconds or so, because we did get out of bounds, incomplete. But it cost us some time, and ultimately there's a little field position out as well.
Why do you think your defensive line was so successful on Saturday?
Well, we got good players, and when they play the way they're supposed to, they're hard to handle. And there's a matchup every week. Our O-line against their D-line, and their O-line against our D-line, and we need to win them. And it's our expectation that we do that, because we got good players that take coaching and play within the scheme and continue to do that play after play. And I thought they did that much better as a unit on Saturday than they did the previous Saturday, and that would be the expectation moving forward. We were really heavy with reps going to our starting 4. We need to continue to be able to gain confidence with the next 4, because we want to play 8 to 10, in order to do that, everybody's got to be able to execute. But yeah, they were very impactful. It was probably as good a D-line performance as we've had against that outfit in the 4 times we played them.
And then a couple weeks with a couple of blocked punts, I guess, how do you kind of diagnose that going into this week?
Well, I'd say this, it can't happen again. We hadn't had a punt blocked in 4 years, and we get 2 in 2 weeks. And typically you get a punt blocked, it's going to be a large contributing factor to you losing the football game. Punt blocked, punt returned, whatever it might be. And in our level of execution on those 2, plus the other one we got pressure at Oregon, hasn't been good enough. So we were schemed up the right way. Have we understood the scheme exactly how we need to and then executed it? Obviously not. It hasn't been a matter of snap and kick on either of them. Like we have 2 young players there in Brody and Colby that they haven't been a contributing factor on those 2 blocks. So we got to get it figured out. I think it's really as simple as that. And I like the fact we've punted 14 times in 2 games. That doesn't help either.
Coach, third down inefficiency, 25% at Oregon, 20% on Saturday. Causes for that and fixes for that moving forward.
Well, we were 5 of 15.
Or 5 of 15.
Yeah, I mean, which still isn't good enough. I know we want an edge there, so we were 5 of 15, and they were 1 of 13. And if you'd told me we'd rush for 200 and they'd be 1 of 13 on third down and we would lose the game, I thought you'd be crazy. But now, how do we get to our 200 yards? I'm answering your question here. We weren't good enough on first down. I think that's probably the biggest thing. We ended up with 4 3-and-outs, 3 in the second half. And that's first down execution. It's being able to run the ball consistently and/or a short passing game be able to be as efficient as possible. Mixed in there, though, there's a 3rd and 2 early that we didn't pick up, and ultimately, it's a 4th down, but the 4th and short we don't get at the end of the game. I mean, we have to be on point in short yardage. We got to stay out of long yardage. So, it's probably a matter of that 33% being in that game, say 45%. That's really would measure success, and ultimately, you kind of go as your situations go. The more shorts and mediums you have, the better you're going to be. And that's not third down. That's what are you doing on first and second down to really gain consistency. So we were too inefficient on those downs that then led to third down being what it was.
On the punt block team, you had a few good plays. Carson's tackle, the pressure on the one that you returned, and then the Mason Deathman getting the tackle for loss on the long punt right before it. What have you kind of just seen as reasons for success there on those plays?
Well, I thought, you're sitting there thinking, boy, this is a battle of punt teams. Honestly, I thought their punter did a really good job of making it hard for us to get anything going on the return side. Got the ball really high in the air. When Taco did have a couple opportunities, there wasn't much there. He pinned the ball well. I know Colby ultimately mishit 1 in there. We got the 1 block, but then he really came through at the end. And you mentioned that tackle by Carson. That was huge because that was not a good punt. It was in the middle of the field, and without Carson making that play, we're in trouble. We dialed up the pressure at the right time, and we were able to return the favor and get a big play. The ebbs and flows of the punt teams were in a game like that. I think ultimately still leaned to them because of how well they punted and how they kept Taco at bay. But we have some guys that can cover. We got some young guys that their primary role is on special teams. I know you mentioned Mason. He's certainly one of them. Seth Brock gets the touchdown. He's certainly one of them. I know Carson's playing a little bit of offense, but he's a factor. So I think those units are gaining experience and making progress, and how important just that punt versus punt battle goes each week is really important. You talk about turnover margin, third down battle, red zone touchdowns, and the way the kickoff is anymore, it's really about the punt teams. How does that field position piece match up? And unfortunately, we lost the turnover battle. While we won the third down battle, we didn't win it by enough. They scored one more red zone touchdown than we did, and then they had us in that punt. So, we're making progress in all areas, but we can't get a punt blocked, and we got to be able to make plays, which we did, but it ultimately didn't quite balance out.
For San Diego, two very different games, very different results. I guess how do you balance when you look at their first two games?
Well, I think you look and say, well, they got some things figured out from week 1 to week 2. Their opponents were different, just the makeup of Cal Poly and Southern Utah, two different teams. They got off to a really slow start against Cal Poly. We're down 24-0 in that game. Last week it was a little bit, or last Saturday was a little bit more of a back and forth early, but then they took charge, and you could just sense we were more in control. And the nature of what they at least have aimed to do these first couple weeks is be balanced, take what the defense gives you, run the football. So if you allow them to be balanced, which includes running the football, they can cause some problems. On the flip side, their aggressive nature. If you can't make some plays in the passing game, that's going to be hard. And I think Northern Colorado or Cal Poly did that. They I had Northern Colorado in my mind because I was just watching the end of that game. But, Cal Poly made plays in every which way. Their quarterbacks made plays. They made plays in the passing game, and they opened up a lead. So, important for us on defense to not allow them to play this balanced game, and important for us to be able to do that, and be able to take charge as much as we can.
And then in terms of their offense, I guess characteristically, what kind of stands out about them and their playmakers on that side?
Well, it starts with the quarterback. He's really an electric guy. I think he's running the low 20s right now as far as carries, but they've been very productive carries. His ability to escape and make plays. Passing is showing up too. He's the type of guy you want to make one-dimensional. You want to eliminate that ability for him to be able to run around, but I think that's going to be a challenge. The running backs have been highly productive, and he's got a lion's share of their carries so far. And then receiver-wise, they have some good size and athleticism. And then I mentioned, I think offensive line-wise, they're a big group. They're an athletic group. And again, they're gonna be structured so they can take what the defense gives you. So I know it's gonna be a little bit of cat and mouse in that regard, and getting them off schedule, being really good on our end defensively on first down is gonna be so important.
And then I guess same thing characteristic on defense has to.
Well, I think they're aggressive, and they got some good-looking dudes. I know that in front. They're more of a traditional 3-4 team where regular downs they want to play with 3 down linemen and do the things out of that creates problems by just getting hats in the box and be pretty aggressive on the outside in their coverage, leaving guys on islands. So that's why I say, you have to make some plays in the passing game. It just can't be about running every down, and we got to be creative. And again, for us to be successful, it goes back to the recipe. We have to be good on first down. And they have a good pressure package that just shift gears for them a little bit on third down, where they adjust their personnel a little bit. And the tale of two games for them is it's been their ability to be more in control of those situations.
Did the C2P work fine this week?
Yeah. Yep. That was all good.
And just the close losses over the last handful of years. How much do you kind of balance thinking about the bad luck that goes into that, obviously the execution errors there, and just trying to think about going forward with how close do you feel like these games are to going the other way?
Oh well, I look at it and ultimately we're not there yet. Lots made of our matchup against those two schools, and the last 4 have been they've been really close. We've just been on the wrong side of all 4 of them, and that was a playoff type atmosphere on Saturday night, but it doesn't have the playoff finality to it. So you want to be able to say, okay, does that game having that game in the regular season, playing into overtime, does that better prepare you for, potential opportunity down the road? I hope it does. I hope we get that opportunity is all I can think about right now. I mean, we got to be able to win this week, and that's all you can really think about. So no matter what, I think competition hardens you, it can expose you, and maybe that both of those things have happened through the first 2 weeks. I think we keep finding out we need more. We need to get more out of ourselves. Until you get out there in an overtime situation, and sure we had a few guys that would have been on that field at the end of the 2023 season, but we had plenty of guys that weren't. It's a different game in overtime, so don't get yourself in those situations first and foremost, but if you do, it's really about making a defensive stop first and foremost. I think that's traditionally what happens. The team that makes a defensive stop is going to win, and we didn't do that in either series, and so we had to be able to match that on offense to just get ourselves in position to make a 2-point play to win a game, and then we didn't do that. So we're not interested in being close, and that's kind of where we're at right now, and we gotta find a way to get better. And San Diego's the only team that is really a concern in trying to get a win this week.
Coach, you mentioned that 1 minute drill and Justin missing the open guy and running. Generally speaking, would you like to see him stick in the pocket a little bit more?
Well, I think it's just knowing, okay, I have no timeouts. We need to get this many yards. I probably have to treat this different than I treated the play 2 or 3 plays before that. And again, experience is the best teacher. Justin's played some, but he hasn't been that guy at his previous stops getting those 2-minute reps, even if it's been in practice. We've done fall camps worth and a couple weeks worth of 2-minute that we, have played out in the stadium, and I hope those situations have taught him some things, but experience and gaining experience through the course of a year, because it's minute 12, there's no timeouts, you got your balls in the 22, we need to get to here. That was that situation. The next one might be a little bit different, but knowing where you're at in the field, how far you need to get, what that time clock is, and you got guys coming after you. You got all those dynamics. If we get a similar situation down the road, I hope he handles it differently.
Just guys receiving scholarships after practice today. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, started last year, and it's support. It's not necessarily a scholarship because it's coming from an outside source. But yeah, I think for us, the rules have changed. We can have 105 guys on some sort of scholarship, but we still have 63 scholarships within the way the Big Sky chose to do things this year. So to have our money, I guess, to be able to go a little further, and to have 3 guys that originally walked on that now have stepped into roles, get that opportunity. I think that's awesome. We had 2 guys last year, and Zach Cruz, Brock Steele, and then this year Colzer Petrie, JJ Dolan, and Ryan Correa. I can't thank our supporters enough, and we'll see where the rules are at next year. My hope is that the Big Sky doesn't sit at 63, so then we might handle something like that a little bit differently, but the way the rules currently stood, it was a great opportunity.
Coach, as far as dividing labor between the 2 running backs in this past game, do you expect that to be just a game-to-game basis, or was that pretty much how it's going to be?
Well, there's a little bit of just opportunity. Situations pop up. There might be certain plays for one or the other, but ultimately, we want the load to be distributed between the both of them. And it was more how we wanted this last game than it was the first game. And again, opportunities are, their play calls, their length of drives that come into play. And I thought Julius did a really good job with the opportunities he had. Adam maybe didn't get as many opportunities as clean as Julius did. I thought Adam had a particularly not long runs, but really impressive runs to score that touchdown in overtime. And then the last one, that wasn't Julius. I don't either one of them was going to gain about a foot short of where they were supposed to get.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Well, for me, first of all, I saw a couple of the guys after the game, and they all seemed like they're very adamant about wanting to get back on the field, hungry for a win, sort of chomping at the bit. So how do you sort of channel that energy and sort of move forward rather than dwelling on the past?
Well, we have to put the work in. You can't just snap your fingers and come back on a Monday and play a game. It's not the way our schedule works. So I appreciate the hunger. I appreciate our guys wanting to get back out there. And I hope these 2 games, we've learned enough lessons that we can take that and move forward. You could look at it 2 ways. You could really have this sense of panic, or you could have this sense of urgency. 2 different things in my mind. Panic kind of means you don't see it moving forward. Urgency means, okay, we see it, we have to do this, and this to get where we want to go. So I think that's how our guys feel. I think that's the hunger that you're speaking of. I think our guys clearly understand our expectations here, and we haven't met them in the first couple weeks. And that's not the result necessarily. It's just being able to play really hard and really being able to execute at a level that you walk off that field, you've put the film in on Sunday and Monday, and you feel really good about it. I think we walked off that field, and certainly it felt like we played hard, but I'm sure there was an inclination in any of those guys' minds that we didn't execute to the level. So you go back to work, you put the time in, regardless of who the next opponent is, and you take that step forward.
The defensive line particularly, though, they did play so well, so how do you sort of continue to build off of that, and how much can those guys sort of help lead you guys forward?
Yeah, I think it's important. You look at, I'd say 2 guys in particular, Hunter Parsons and Alec Eckert probably played their best games as Bobcats, and that's to complement Paul and Kenny who have been very consistent. So hey guys, there's a new standard in town. Talking about those 2 in particular, Hunter and Alec, and if that group of 4 can consistently be at their peak, then we're going to be hard to handle. And I mentioned earlier, we have to figure out how that next 4 can maybe not exactly duplicate that, but they can be dang close to that, because then we really have something. And it wasn't so much that those next 4 did anything particularly wrong. They just didn't play as much as we need to, and then that reflects back on how they've been practicing more than anything. So for that group of 8, I think continue to say, hey guys, this is the expectation. You guys need to drive the train here on defense, and you can all do it. Now, just keep doing it and add more guys to the mix.
Seems like those guys know that, though, too, right? I mean, it seems like they know that they're the ones that are going to have to.
Yeah. No, I think so. And I, any of the years since I've been here, it's been, hey, we got to play well up front, and that's where it starts. And while the names have changed a little bit, I think by the time those guys have gotten on the field, especially the starting group, I think they've known that. But does that next wave exactly know that? Obviously not. So if we can get to, again, that group becoming a more consistent 8-man deal, and it was really 5. I know Zach played quite a bit too, but we can get to that point, then we really have something. So I don't think it's a group that has any sense of feeling like, well, we don't want this on our shoulders. They know it has to start with them, and I think that's what they want.
The special teams, it seems like that could be a direct reflection of both the youth and inexperience, but also some of the potential you have to. I thought a couple of young guys played really well for you on special teams too. So, I mean, how do you sort of balance those 2 thoughts? There is probably some inconsistencies because they've got some freshmen on there, but also some freshmen that are playing pretty well in certain spots.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. that we've talked about, our special teams units have been older the last couple years. Maybe not any more talented, but they've been older. So even, our preparation and how we practice and those reps really leaning towards those young guys and just trying to build them up as quickly as possible. We've definitely shifted that focus, but it hasn't been the level of consistency to this point that we need. But it's those guys not allowing the moment to be too big for sure, and it's certainly about them understanding I'm on the field because the coaches believe in me now. I need to execute like I've been doing this for a while, and now we got 2 games behind our belt, so it's our hope that continues to grow, because going out there and the bullets are flying and there's 22,000 is different than a Tuesday morning in an empty stadium, and being able to make quick decisions and be able to execute the way we need to is challenging, but it's a challenge we need to not only accept but execute, because I think our talent and our speed on those teams should allow for us to be a team that walks away from every week and has an edge in the special teams game, and we clearly haven't had that the first 2 weeks.
Mason Deafman, again, it's really showed up. I thought Saturday night for sure. What has allowed him to sort of make an impact in games as a guy that came from small school, tiny town football in Montana?
Yeah, I think he possesses some physical attributes, his size, his length, and he can run. And it's really important to him too. And while making that transition is one thing as a linebacker on defense, taking an assignment on special teams and really valuing that opportunity is something that I think isn't as complicated for Mason. So, you get out in the field for the first time and it's at Autzen Stadium, that might seem a little daunting, but you go out there and you do it and you figure out, I belong out here, and then you take that next step, the first time playing in a home game. You make plays, that's another step, and now I'm sure there's a level of consistency and perfection even that's not quite there for Mason, but he Seth Brock, I think those two in particular. We got Xavier Aaron's a true freshman out there. Those are 3 big bodies that can really run, and those aren't easy on any roster to find, because a lot of those guys are already playing for you a lot of reps on defense, and those 3 are prominent guys on a multiple number of our teams that I think they really value the opportunity first and foremost, and they have the talent, and they want it, they want to learn, and they really want to make a difference.
Yeah, Seth Brock was the other guy I was going to ask about. It seems like his trajectory is just through the roof, right? It seems like he's gotten so much better since last fall and through the spring into this fall.
Yeah, and I'd say same thing. Getting out there and being a regular guy on our defensive line isn't quite there yet. Is he going to be maybe a pass rush guy at some point? Maybe, but I know that we think he can make a real difference on special teams, because he can run and he's fearless, and we just got to be able to harness that. I think for all those guys, because it really matters to him. I think that was a neat thing when Seth scored. I mean, for him and that whole group for that matter, I think they realize how that flipped that game. We were right back in it because we executed. And Mason was really the initial key to that. He did exactly what he was supposed to, get upfield, make it hard on the punter. The punter had a lot of indecision, ended up missing the ball, and it went right into Seth's hands. So we need those guys, and I said Xavier too, those 3 in particular to continue to show up where, anybody watching the game, who's that 33, who's that 91, who's that 43, whether it's running down, covering, or whatever. And for the most part, it's really our opponents to see that and really see them as a challenge.
Is the fact that you are so young on special teams, is that circumstantial, or is that a strategic choice? We'll just take you through the sort of.
Well, our roster is just young, in general. I think so. That's a decision that we made looking at last year's roster. We knew we were going to lose a big number of seniors. We knew that we wouldn't have many seniors this year. We have 9, and that's adding a couple guys, I suppose, to that mix. you know, but it's looking at our young talent to say, you know, are they ready to take on more prominent roles, offense, defense? At minimum, are these guys, you know, going to be a factor in special teams? And you know, mid-season we felt that we didn't feel like, you know, we needed to reverse course. So we brought in a big freshman class last year versus bringing in a group of transfers that would have made us older. But the makeup of our roster, you know, the senior group was the initial group that had been signed when I got the job. We don't got a lot of those guys left, and it just is what it is. And you know, instead of trying to replace that group, we've continued to recruit young guys that, you know, there's an evolution to who they become here, and it starts with playing special teams in a lot of those guys' case, and evolves as they go along. But that's kind of been our recipe. It just so happens that the average age is a little bit younger in those groups this year.